It had been 2 years since the last one and my mind was going crazy. Living in the hills outside a small town didn't make things easier. I couldn't just pop down to the one and only bar to try to pick up some guy, everyone knew me. On top of that, I had Sandy to think about. After her father had died in a motorcycle accident 2 years before, she had become even quieter than her usual withdrawn self. She was my stepdaughter, but I loved her dearly. Her mother had died when she was in her early teens, and when her father, John, met me, she took it hard in the beginning. She still never called me Mom, it was always Nina. She was 19 and only 10 years younger than I. Over time we had become more like sisters than stepmother and stepdaughter, and the death of John had made us even closer. When she graduated from high school, we had decided we should move to the city where she could go to university, but for the meantime, we were stuck in this hell hole. Sandy was very independent, and when I walked into the kitchen I saw that she had had breakfast and done her dishes. She usually left before I woke up and left a pot of coffee for me. John had left us well off with a life insurance policy, and since the accident had been called a mechanical failure and the Ducati Monster had only been 6 weeks old, the company paid us a large settlement so we wouldn't sue. But what was money when all we wanted was John back? I put most of it into a trust fund for Sandy, which would be released when she went to university, and the rest we used to live off. After breakfast, I did what I usually did, cleaned up, pottered in the garden, went for a walk and then the washing. As I walked into Sandy's room with her clothes, I noticed her computer was on. Sometimes she was a bit distracted, so I decided not to tell her off. When I walked up to her desk to turn it off, I noticed she had been using the cam. The other person's camera was in an elevated position and it looked down on a bed. From what I could see, it was a young man's room, girly posters, a few of cars and weapons. I wondered who it could be, since as far as I knew Sandy wasn't dating anyone and never had. She was a pretty girl with thick dark brown hair past her shoulders, an oval face with kind blue eyes and a button for a nose. She had inherited her father's height and was close to 5'10". I had spoken to her about boys and dating, but it seemed that she didn't care. The high school she attended was small, and I guess the option of dating material was limited. I was secretly happy about it because I didn't want to deal with all the drama that a boyfriend could bring. I turned off the computer and decided to ask her later on. These days one had to be careful, there were so many men out there in cyberspace that could convince an innocent girl to do all kinds of crap on the screen. "Hi, Nina. I am home," I heard Sandy call from the vestibule. I got up from the sofa and met her at the kitchen door. "Hi, how was school?" She hung up her light spring jacket on the hook on the wall. "Are you hungry?" I asked. "Sure, I could eat a sandwich." "Good, come with me, I need to ask you something." When the sandwich was ready and Sandy had taken her first bite, I sat down opposite her. "You left your computer on again." "Oh, I am sorry." "Don't worry about it, but what I wanted to ask you was, who were you camming with?" She stopped her hand, holding the sandwich an inch from her mouth, and her eyes began to move. She was coming up with something, and it wasn't the truth. I knew that look, she was going to lie to me. "Oh, I cammed with Aaron last night, we are doing a school project together." I had never met this Aaron guy, not even heard him mentioned. And what kind of project is that?" She took a bite and after swallowing said, "Global warming." "And you need to cam for that?" "Sure, he is doing all the graphs and I am writing the text. When he prints them out he shows them to me using the cam. Why not simply email them to you?" She was quiet for a moment. "Yeah, I guess we could do that." I leaned forward and took her hand in mine. "I trust you, Sandy, I just want you to be safe, there are so many freaks out there." She giggled. "Yeah, I know." She left and I sat at the table thinking. She had lied about something, but I had no clue about what, and I wanted to find out. That evening Sandy went to her room around 9 in the evening. She said she was going to cam with Aaron and I said good night. While sipping on a glass of wine, I watched a movie on the TV. When it was over around 2 hours later, I decided it was time for bed, and after leaving my glass in the sink, I turned off all the lights and went upstairs. Passing Sandy's room, I saw the light was still on inside, so I pressed my ear to the door and heard her giggle. Frowning, I bent down and looked through the keyhole. Her desk was positioned so that I could see half of the computer screen and part of her back. On the screen I could make out someone lying on the bed that I had seen earlier. I quickly left and went into my own room, where I sat down on the bed deep in thought. My stepdaughter was camming with a guy. Was that wrong? God damn, yes it was. Was it my business? Yes, she was still a young girl. Should I confront her now? No, it was better to do it in the morning. My biggest concern was not the fact that she did, which was fine and healthy. What did worry me was if the guy on the other end was recording. That could lead to blackmail and harassment. I had a hard time falling asleep that night, but I eventually did. I had decided to confiscate her laptop and give her a 2-week grounding for being stupid and putting herself in a dangerous position. "Hi, you are up early," Sandy said when she walked into the kitchen the following morning. I turned around from the stove and smiled at her. "Hi, honey. Did you sleep well? I decided it was my turn to make you breakfast." She was dressed in a pink tank top. Her hair was tousled and she had a sleepy look on her face. "Thanks, Nina. That's nice of you." When we had eaten for a while, I cleared my throat. "Sandy, I am grounding you." She looked up from her plate. "Why? What did I do?" I sighed. "I am also confiscating your laptop. I know what you did last night with that guy on cam. Aaron was his name, I believe." Sandy blushed. "Were you spying on my, that's so sick language, young lady, and I did not spy on you. I happened to walk past your door and I heard you. I looked through the keyhole and saw what you did. That is so unfair. That is spying." I picked up my empty plate. "End of discussion, get ready for school and I'll see you later." She stormed out, and a few minutes later and I heard the entrance door slam shut. I did the dishes and then decided it was a good time as any to get her laptop. She had left it on again, and as I walked up to it I saw a guy moving around on the screen. He was a fine specimen of a young man with broad shoulders, thick arms, and legs. Something came over me and I quickly turned off Sandy's cam and sat down at the desk. This way I could watch him without him seeing me. When he turned around I sighed. His face was angular with deep-set eyes and curly black hair. Suddenly there was a ping, and when I turned back to the screen a text had appeared in a box. "Hi, still there?" I began to sweat. The guy thought I was Sandy. Then another text came up. "Hey, what's happened to your cam?" I thought for a second and then typed. "Not sure, I have to check later." "No time now." "Okay, do you want to see him, one more time?" I figured I knew what he meant. "Sure." He leaned forward and typed with one hand. "Do you like it?" "I love it." Then the screen went black. He had logged off. I sat in the silence thinking about what I had just done. There was something familiar about him. Then it hit me, I knew this guy, and his name was Aaron. He worked at the gas station I pass on my way into town. Then another thought went through my mind. I had Sandy's computer, and she would obviously tell him what had happened as soon as she could. I had actually liked what I had seen and wanted more. When Sandy came home she ignored me and went directly to her room, where she locked the door and didn't come out until it was time for dinner. We ate in silence and it really bothered me. "Sandy, come on, you know you did something you shouldn't have, but that doesn't mean we can't speak to each other," I said. "I have nothing to say to you, leave me alone." When she had finished she went back to her room and I did the dishes. After watching TV for a while I decided it was time for bed. My eyes lingered over Sandy's laptop that sat on my dresser. I stopped what I was doing and walked over to it and turned it on. As it booted up I almost changed my mind, but there for a force inside me that didn't let me. I moved the laptop over to my desk and sat down in the chair. Before logging on to the Wi-Fi I checked the camera angle. When the Wi-Fi connected so did the chat program, and within a minute I was looking at Aaron's empty bedroom. It was just after 11 at night and I thought he might still be working, which would suck. I didn't think I had the courage to do what I was doing again. At that moment a shadow moved in Aaron's room. Then, suddenly he was there, sitting at his desk. "Hey, I thought Nina took the laptop away," he typed. "No, she gave it back to me." "Cool, why can't I see your face?" I thought, what do I say now? I am not in my room and the camera can't catch my face from where I am sitting. Weird. Anyway, turn on the mic so we can talk, I want to hear your voice. I thought for a second and then typed. "Sorry, Nina is around, I don't want her to know." I could see him stare at his screen and his face looked like if he was thinking. I felt myself blush. I was busted. There was no way to get out of this without him knowing I wasn't Sandy. I decided it was better to tell the truth and live with the consequences. I angled the camera so he could see my face. "Who are you?" he types quickly. "Nina, Sandy's stepmom." "You are hot." I had not expected that answer. "Thanks." "Does Sandy know you are online?" "No." "Good, don't ever tell her, she is not stable." What did that mean, I thought but didn't ask. He typed again. "What do you want to do?" "I want to see you." "Okay, move your chair back, I want to see you." I did what he asked. I saw how he watched me and then leaned forward and typed, "You have a cute." "Thanks." A crazy idea came over me. "Aaron, would you like to come over tomorrow, and do it for real?" He didn't answer directly. Then he typed. "What about Sandy?" "She doesn't have to know, and she is at school." "Okay, in the morning, is 10 okay?" "Perfect. See you then." I typed the address and then logged off. When I walked into the kitchen the following morning at 9 the coffee pot stood empty and the dishes were not done. I sighed and did them while the coffee maker did its job. Sandy was obviously still upset with me, and if she found out what I was doing that morning she would shit kittens. After a healthy breakfast, it was almost 10 and I waited by the door. My palms were sweaty and I was dead nervous. I figured we should get over and done with as soon as possible. On the dot, an old rusted Bronco parked outside the house and Aaron stepped out. I watched him through the window in the door, and when he took the last step up onto the porch I opened the door. "Hi, welcome." "Please, come in," I said. He looked at me from top to bottom and a smile grew on his face. "You are so beautiful." "Yeah, thanks, but get inside." I had hardly closed the door when he grabbed me from behind. His hands cupped me and he began kissing. I slipped away from him and taking his hand I walked into the living room. We continued kissing. Can you guess what happens next? "What the hell are you doing?" The voice came from the corridor leading to the living room from the hall. When I turned my head I saw Sandy standing just inside the living room. "Oh shit, I am so sorry," I said. Aaron stood there, staring at Sandy. He then said the strangest thing. "Please, Sandy, I am so sorry, please don't hurt me." A smile grew on her face and she slowly walked up to us. When she reached Aaron she put a hand on his cheek. "So, tell me, honey. Why is it okay to with Nina when I asked you to with me and you said no?" Aaron swallowed hard before saying, "I don't know, sorry." Her smile stayed on her face and she said, "Not to worry, you can with me now, while my stepmom watches." "But, I thought you wanted to wait." "I don't want," said Aaron. "Maybe Nina will help?" Turning to me she continued, "Would you like that?" I cleared my throat. "Come on, Sandy, this was a big mistake, let's just calm down." "Aaron, I think you should leave, I need to talk to Sandy alone." He began to move but Sandy put her palm against his chest and pushed him back. You stay right where you are. Fear showed in his face and he stood rock still. Aaron, get on the sofa. Before I had a chance to protest, Aaron quickly got on the sofa. What do you call that? She said with a snarl. I don't know, Aaron answered. That thing is useless. Why isn't as hard as when we cam? I spoke up. He is nervous? She smiled. Yeah, that sounds good. I had never seen Sandy like this before. She seemed so hard and angry. I decided to play along and then later have a long talk with her. I sat down next to Sandy on the sofa. So, do you want to talk about this? I said quietly. About what? Oh, you mean you with my boyfriend behind my back? I sighed. Yeah, about that. Suddenly Sandy looked up and cocked her head. What? I said. Wait for it, wait for it. There was a muffled explosion in the distance and Sandy began to smile. What was that? I asked. That, dear Nina, was Aaron's Bronco exploding as it went over the cliff at the first switchback. I went cold. What did you do? The same thing I did to Daddy when I found out he cheated on you. What are you talking about? My mind was racing. Had John cheated on me? Oh, Daddy was a real player. I caught him several times chatting and camming with other women while you were at work or sleeping. I followed him a few times and saw how he would take them to hotels. So, I got rid of him, the same as with that cheating bastard Aaron. She put her hand on my cheek and said, Nina, I have been in love with you since the first time I saw you. That Daddy cheated was just an even better excuse to get rid of him. I slowly got up and began walking towards the stairs and my room. When I was halfway there I heard Sandy say, just relax. We will sell the house and go to California where you will be my house. She laughed, an eerie sound that chilled me to the bones, and I knew my life depended on how well I could keep her happy.